So as excited as everyone was for the Shohei Ohtani news, another piece that got moved last week was Juan Soto. Juan Soto is officially wearing pinstripes moving forward. Kyle Ledbetter, what type of player are the Yankees getting in this trade?
One of the best hitters in baseball, irrefutably the best player at drawing walks in baseball, which is an underrated value. Like, his plate discipline is just absolutely incredible. He was the Padres' best hitter in 2023, which granted isn't saying a ton because of San Diego having some shortcomings from players who are making a lot of money. But Juan Soto had a really tough start to the season, turned it around the back half of the year. I wish he would have stuck around in San Diego, and the New York Yankees are getting a tremendous offensive player who also will play very good defense. I know there's questions about what position he's going to play when he gets to New York, whether he's the right fielder, whether he's the left fielder, because they traded for Verdugo, but a very good defensive player who last year was top 20 in baseball and wins above replacement. They are getting the real deal when it comes to Juan Soto.
So Brian Cashman has already said that Aaron Judge will be their starting everyday center fielder. So at least we know that part is locked up in their outfield. I guess the question lineup wise is, do you stick Juan Soto in front of Aaron Judge, or do you have Aaron Judge bat behind Soto?
That's a good question, because San Diego experimented with a bunch of different stuff with Soto. They had him as the one hitter. They had him as the 3 hitter. They had him as the 4 hitter. If I'm putting together the Yankee lineup, I'm still keeping Judge as the 2 hitter, which I'm pretty sure is where he's been for most of the last couple seasons. I'm putting Stanton as the 3.
Well, you still got Rizzo in that lineup too.
Yeah. I think I'm probably putting Rizzo as the 1, and I'm putting Soto as the 4. Or maybe I'm putting Soto as the 3 and Stanton as the 4. Maybe that's what I'm doing there.
Well, that's kind of a question there, because Stanton, his numbers dropped off terribly last year. So Yankees fans are wondering, what place does he still have in the lineup? You still have him in the top 5 if you're starting everyday lineup. Do you think you should question that?
I don't know who would, because the Yankees don't have a strong back end of the lineup. If I'm remembering correctly, at this point, they would have...
You do have Volpe, who's going to be your starting everyday shortstop. Verdugo, right, as you mentioned. So they just acquired him. How does
who's their catcher right now? I'm sure. Who's their catcher?
Oh, their starting catcher at the moment is going to be Austin Wells, or at least their projected starting catcher.
Yeah, because in my mind, I was thinking Higashioka, but he got traded to San Diego as part of the package to get Juan Soto. So he's not going to jump Stanton. I don't think Verdugo's going to jump Stanton. Yeah, I think Stanton's still in the top 5 in that batting lineup. So I think the Yankees are looking at what options they have, because they basically just rebuilt an outfield. Maybe there's more moves to be made for the Yankees at another free agent signing. Maybe LeMahieu finds a spot back in there. But I think the Yankees are still looking at Stanton as the cleanup hitter.
Most projections sell LeMahieu as the number 1 hitter, so leading off. And as you mentioned, Aaron Judge as the 2 hole behind him. I kind of like Soto ahead of Judge, mostly because if the idea is to get guys on base, and you mentioned Soto is amazing at drawing walks and getting on base, I would like that ahead of Aaron Judge in a lineup, just from a projected RBI standpoint, because the Yankees, the last few years, they hit so many solo home runs. It would be nice to see them get more home runs with guys on base, and that would probably change the dichotomy of their lineup a lot more in their scoring ability. Now, Soto, the boost this brings to him offensively. So, yes, they drew in the fences at Petco, but I still consider it more of a pitcher's park. Going to Yankee Stadium, of course, that is going to be a boost for him offensively. In fact, going to all 5 of the AL East ballparks will be a boost to Juan Soto offensively, in theory, right? Juan Soto, could he elevate himself back into being like a top 10 player, or a top 10 locked in player like he was just a couple years ago? Because I think a lot of people, yes, you mentioned the WAR stats still favor him. Defensively, people still favor him. But I don't think a lot of people still valued him in that same spot, because he started off so slow with the Padres last year and didn't really take over in the way that people were thinking that he would have took over after that trade.
Okay, so in some way, shape, or form, the top 6 hitters are going to be Soto, Judge, Stanton, Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, and LeMahieu, most likely. And I think that they're going to have to experiment a little bit to kind of figure out the best group and how that's going to fit together for the Yankees at this point. But I could see Soto hitting leadoff. I mean, the San Diego tried it when they were struggling, and ultimately they came to the conclusion that Soto was better served being in that 4 slot with, they also tried Tatis as the leadoff hitter, and then they figured out Ha-Sung Kim was actually their best leadoff hitter all along. It was like, who's the leadoff hitter? And then the murder mystery, it's like, it was Ha-Sung Kim all along, and it was surprising. But San Diego tried a bunch of different things. The Yankees can try a bunch of different things. I still really liked when Rizzo was hitting leadoff. I know they're probably not going to stick with it again, but I said it right off the top. I would love it if Rizzo was still hitting leadoff for the Yankees. It was super fun when they experimented with that. So, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening, but the Yankees have a top 6 that is solid. I mean, LeMahieu has struggled, and I know that he's kind of, could be 6, could be 7, depending on how you swap Verdugo lefty and LeMahieu righty and how you just want to kind of mix and match that one. But they could try a whole bunch of different stuff to put that lineup together. And like I said earlier, maybe they're not done yet. Maybe there's still another piece to add for the Yankees before this is all said and done. Maybe Matt Chapman is on his way to New York, and that changes the whole dynamic of the lineup again. And maybe then Stanton is sliding further down in the order. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility the Yankees have with that lineup now that they've completely rebuilt their outfield, because they also got defensive platoon Trent Grisham in there for their trade as well.
Now, at the risk of dating this video, because free agency comes hot and fast, I would just say the next thing they should be focusing on is their rotation, of course. Yamamoto, we've heard his name connected to the Yankees. We've heard his name connected to the Mets. It seems like he's going to a New York team, despite San Francisco's best wishes to acquire Yamamoto after striking out on Ohtani. Now, if they were to get him, and obviously the Juan Soto trade, do you consider this a successful offseason for the Yankees, coming off last year's failure to make the postseason for the first time in forever?
I think I'd already consider this a pretty successful offseason for the Yankees. I mean, rebuilding your outfield is not an easy thing to do. And I know Judge is still there, but they traded for Trent Grisham and all that stuff. And by the way, they got rid of 4 players who were on their active MLB roster, which is, a lot of them were former prospects and stuff like that going to San Diego. As I joked in the reaction video I did to the Soto trade, that they got the sloppy seconds from the Yankees, like players who were kind of top prospects that never have clicked yet for the Yankees at this point. And they did get 1 top prospect from New York out of the deal. But besides that point, the Yankees are clearing out a lot of space on the roster to try and bring in new pitchers and new relievers. That's a big part of why they made the Soto trade at the time they did, was because they were going after Yamamoto, and because they've been trying to find that third starting pitcher that I've joked for years. The Yankees just can't figure out who's going to start game 3 of a playoff game. For years, they haven't been able to figure it out. And now they've got their ace, Nasty Nestor, when healthy, is their game 2 starter. And they're just trying to figure out who the hell can start a game 3.
Hold on there. I would say Carlos Rodon, if he's healthy, would be their game 2 starter, ideally. That's going to be the thing for him. When healthy, Carlos Rodon is way nastier than even Nasty Nestor. Nasty Nestor coming off a horrible year himself, though. He did not look himself last season. So right now, he would probably be the 3 in this current rotation. But I do think that does make a guy like Yamamoto a must. If he is as good and as nasty as people say the Yamamoto is, then he would be an obvious number 3 starter for this team. And then you could maybe use Nasty Nestor when we talk playoffs in particular. Game 4 if needed, long reliever if needed, which I think might be a better role for what Nestor Cortez brings to this Yankees pitching staff.
I just find it so weird to say that Carlos Rodon is a number 2 starter in this year, Lord's year of about to be 2024, but also Nasty Nestor is kind of an interesting story as well.
Carlos Rodon was pretty damn good 2 years ago as a Giant, to the point where Giants fans wanted him back, and to the point where last year he was so bad, the Giants fans are, thank God we didn't bring him back. But he still throws the ball hard. He still brings you that left side of a battery.
So maybe Yamamoto is the number 2 starter, and then the Yankees are still in the purgatory.
Maybe he is. I don't know. Is Yamamoto good? We'll see. Obviously, everyone says he's pretty good. We've seen a lot of successful Japanese stars come over and dominate right away. I think at least in year 1, he could have a Kodai Senga type year, where Kodai Senga started the year off pretty slow and then started to pick it up, that nasty ghost fork, because you hear the things on Yamamoto. He has 4 pitches. He has 4 pitches that he feels pretty proficient at throwing right now. So he might very well be the number 2 in this rotation without even seeing him pitch a Major League Baseball game. But I would say ideally for the Yankees, given the money you are paying Rodon, that Rodon does come in, be your number 2 starter. Yamamoto slides in as the 3 as a rookie, and Nestor Cortez doesn't have 2023 Nestor Cortez numbers, has 2022 and 2021 Nestor Cortez numbers.
I think that would be ideal for the Yankees, right? But that's putting a lot of ifs, ands, and buts into that conversation, which for those who don't know, let me just go through the names that number 3 started the Yankees the years. It was CC Sabathia in 2017. Then it was Masahiro Tanaka. Then it was Jameson Taillon. Then it was a year of James Paxton. Then it was a year of Corey Kluber. They've just tried over and over again to find a third starter for a playoff game, and they've all been stopgaps, and none of them have had the results they wanted. And it's been a running joke as the Yankees get bounced in the playoffs every single year since 2008.
You forgot Severino in that.
Yeah, Severino was in there, but Severino was a legit number 2 for a minute there. Like the year that Tanaka moved down to 3 was the year that Severino had his stuff working. But obviously Severino's now a New York Met. He's no longer part of this rotation for the Yankees. So, I mean, New York is kind of in an interesting position. They obviously need more players because last year was a really bad year, and a lot of the contracts they previously gave out did come back to bite them finally. Like the Aaron Hicks deal was a bit of a mistake. The DJ LeMahieu contract hasn't worked out the way they wanted. The Donaldson thing blew up in their face. That was one of those that didn't make a ton of sense at the time, but because they traded for Donaldson, and I think they gave up Giovanni Urshela in that deal, which has not worked out the way that they hoped it would. Like Urshela was one of their prize. We get a guy in the minor leagues, bring him into our system, and he develops into a serviceable, if not all-star caliber player. I was surprised that they just moved on from Urshela like it was nothing. Like a lot of those contracts and decisions they made in the past came to task this year, and I don't think they're going to be able to clean all of that up within one season. But also having a Cy Young award-winning pitcher, which I can finally say that. It was so weird that for years, Garrett Cole had never won a Cy Young, despite the fact that he was a Hall of Fame level pitcher. Now we can say Cy Young award-winning starter Garrett Cole, because he finally won a Cy Young this year. Having a Cy Young starting pitcher and having Aaron Judge as the focal point of that lineup and having serviceable players around him makes your life a bit easier.
Now, we probably won't see Jason Dominguez for a little bit too, but we also should throw his name in there in this mix. He was pretty fantastic in the 1 month stretch that we got to see a Jason Dominguez. We know Yankees fans were waiting on him to get into the lineup for a long time and finally made it. And then unfortunately, elbow injury. What can you do? Shit happens. But yeah, I mean, the Yankees, are they in a better spot than they were last year? Yeah. I mean, I like this team. In theory, this team does look a little bit better than it does last year. How do they compare against this AL East now? Because, okay, so the Orioles came on strong. The young surging Orioles will probably be a presence for at least the next few years at bare minimum. The Rays, their consistency is the biggest thing, but the Rays, obviously star power, everything, we've seen the limitations with the Rays. The Red Sox, they're rebuilding. It seems like the Red Sox should be down, and the Blue Jays, hell, they probably feel like they're reeling now after missing out on Shohei. So I think the Yankees have this opportunity to at least move up in the AL East. I don't know if they're better or as good as the Rays. I don't know how they stack up against the Orioles. My instinct wants to have me place them below the Orioles right now, given what I saw last season. But I think they're at least within that top 3 of the AL East, somewhere in that mix. I don't know if they're 2 or 3, but I feel like closer to putting them to 2 than 3.
Yeah, I think the thing that's working, I guess, ever so in the Yankees' favor is that for the last, I want to say close to 4 years now, the American League East has been this juggernaut of a division where all 4 teams a year, because it was Baltimore was down bad and now Boston's down bad. But for basically the last 3 or 4 years, the AL East has been this juggernaut with teams that are all trying to get to 90 wins. And then last year they spread out the schedule so that the teams in the division were playing each other less. And you could see a palpable difference in the American League East where every team in the American League East had a better record than every team in the American League Central. It was truly amazing that was the case for most of last season. Even Boston, who fired their general manager and tore everything to the studs after they didn't tear everything to the studs after hiring Craig Breslow, but they fired their general manager after having basically the same record as the Padres for most of the season. So Boston walked out of that, even though they weren't actually that bad. They were last place in the division and it led to a firing. The thing that's working in the Yankees' favor this year Tampa Bay is moving back. Toronto, as presently standing, is moving back. Now, granted, Toronto wants to make a big move here at some point in free agency, but if that big move is re-sign Matt Chapman for a lot of money, I think we can say Toronto's moving back to the pack a little bit, and that gives the Yankees an opportunity to move up because the Yankees got Juan Soto while mortgaging almost nothing against their present major league team. I know they traded away a reliever who had a good, a reliever who will be a starter in San Diego one day, and they traded Kyle Higashioka. Yes, Brito goes over. They traded one of their top prospects, and they give up Kyle Higashioka, which stinks, but they can replace Kyle Higashioka. The New York Yankees got Juan Soto mortgaging against their future, and I think that will make them better in the short term. I mean, there's no way it doesn't because Juan Soto is a really good player. I don't know how many games that will move the needle for them, but in terms of the team itself, having Juan Soto and having Trent Grisham as a defensive replacement, even though Trent Grisham is not a good hitter, having him as a defensive replacement will be fine. And they can either sign more players or make a deadline move. I think I'm with you that it's Baltimore and the Yankees right now, I would guess, in the American League East. Those are the teams that I feel pretty confident saying will make the playoffs, although I'm not 100% sure because, like you said, the Yankees still got to figure out that third starter. They still got to figure out some of those rotation pieces. They still probably need one more big bat in that lineup. I know there's talk about a Gleyber Torres trade, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to let this thing ride out with Torres on the last year of his arbitration. So yeah, we'll see what happens. They probably need to make a couple moves here and there, but I expect that they recognize they need those moves and they'll make some of those transactions this offseason.
All right, guys. Well, Yankees acquired Juan Soto. Alex Verdugo's coming into the Bronx. Who should bat lead off? Like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social medias from Juju and Kyle. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you next time.